Is Cardano hypothetically cooked? Some people have been asking me that, but my response is I don't hypothetically think so. The reason why, I'll explain in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice, is just my personal perspective, and I am not telling anyone to do anything. So let me just say a statistic, and you tell me whether or not this sounds cooked or not. Because did you know that the Cardano Foundation recently made a post saying how 15,000 farms, and again, I repeat, 15,000 farms are registered on Cardano with satellite verified land and sustainability records. This is really massive because what this indicates is that Cardano could hypothetically maybe play a role in the case of farming, or should I say agriculture. This is pretty impressive because we don't really think about this when it comes to Cardano. People are just oftentimes really focused on the price of ADA, which is its native token. Totally understandable. It's below 16 cents slightly, but we sometimes ignore the fact that Cardano is actually making an impact in some market sectors out there in real life. So we just gotta let that sink in. Again, 15,000 farms. That's not that easy to achieve. Let me just, rattle off a couple statistics, right? Did you know that according to something called Statista, in terms of global farming and agriculture statistics, it did indicate how the gross production value was projected at around almost $5 trillion in 2026. That's really massive. And also, did you know that allegedly, according to something called Our World in Data, they have this statistic indicating how there's roughly around 570 million up to 608 million farms out there in the world. So that's really massive. Now, if we take a look at 15,000 farms in the case of Cardano, it's not even 1% of what makes up all the farms in the world, but we have to consider as well. It's a pretty decent achievement, especially considering how Cardano is not really known for that. Like for instance, oftentimes if I ask people about Cardano as a layer one blockchain, people don't automatically think about, oh, it could make an impact when it comes to the case of farming. People don't really mention that. But hypothetically, it's already making somewhat of an impact. So we have to consider, this right here, does it mean it's cooked? I don't think so, actually. Yeah, sure, the price isn't doing the best, but in terms of the fundamentals, I don't think it means it's cooked. And I think another advantage that Cardano has as a layer one blockchain is that it's very neutral in a sense where other places out there like Solana, for instance, they're really known for memes. And also if we take a look at, for instance, in the case of VeChain, it's known for supply chain management, primarily speaking. And again, some of these layer one blockchains out there, they're kind of known for only one thing. Now they could diversify and be focused on a lot of other things, and they are, and they do, but oftentimes people know it as that. But I think an advantage when it comes to Cardano is that it doesn't have that label, right? It doesn't have the label of being focused on only just one niche. So being neutral like that and maybe having use cases in the case of video games, or let's say farming, or let's say in the case of, who knows, memes and stuff like that, it doesn't box Cardano in a sense where it opens it up for a lot more developers that aren't necessarily thinking, oh wow, Cardano is a one-trick pony, because it isn't. I think the fact that Cardano isn't really known for a specialization is a benefit for it. Some people out there like to think it's not such a good thing, but I actually think it is a good thing, because the way take a look at Cardano is that it's like vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream. It's not like an obscure flavor that no one's ever tried, or let's say it's not this, ice cream with a bunch of random toppings. It's not that. It's very universal in my opinion, very neutral, and I think it's actually a benefit when it comes to Cardano moving forward. I don't think it's a disadvantage. That's the thing. So I do like seeing that. However, if I take a look at, let's say in the case of Cardano, people like to say, but the founder, Charles Hoskinson, said how he doesn't have much control over Cardano. He said he's going to be taking a break, and also how he said that he can't affect the price of ADA. Basically, people find that to be a really bad thing, but I don't find that to be a bad thing, because I think if anything, it does indicate the decentralized nature when it comes to Cardano. So the fact that the founder himself can't do anything about the project pretty much, that is actually a really good thing. I don't know why people view it in a negative way, in a sense where a lot of people are kind of overreacting and just leaving Cardano, which is totally their choice. I mean, I can't control anyone, but I'm just saying, I found the reaction to that to not be appropriate with what he actually announced, because it doesn't make sense. If, let's say, Charles Hoskinson said that Cardano was going to become a meme or something like that, then that's very alarming. I get why people would be upset when it comes to that. But if he straight up just said that he basically has no control over the project, I don't find that to be a bad thing, because let's take a look at, for instance, does Satoshi Nakamoto have great control over Bitcoin? Not that we know of. That's the thing, right? And why is that okay when it comes to Bitcoin, but not okay when it comes to Cardano? People often praise the fact that Bitcoin sometimes can't really be controlled by like a Satoshi Nakamoto archetype, right? They're really happy that he can't do anything when it comes to Bitcoin, pretty much in the grand scheme of things. People seem to like that. But suddenly when it comes to Cardano, people don't like that. How does that make sense? So it's okay when it comes to Bitcoin, but not okay when it comes to Cardano? It just doesn't make sense to me. And also, not to mention, Charles Hoskinson saying he's going to be taking a break. Well, how long has Satoshi Nakamoto been taking a break? You know what I mean? We don't even know who he is, even up until right now, at least generally speaking. So again, he's been taking a break for well over a decade when it comes to Satoshi. But suddenly when it comes to Charles Hoskinson, him announcing he's going to be taking a break, it's suddenly considered very alarming. I don't think about it that way. Take a look at also in the case of Dogecoin. One of the co-founders sold all of his Dogecoin back then and bought a car. You know what I mean? And people still don't really find that to be problematic when it comes to Dogecoin. But when it comes to Cardano, the founder taking a break, saying how he has no control over Cardano, that's suddenly considered very alarming. It doesn't seem that way to me, actually. So, you know what? If ADA is below 16 cents, I have no complaints about that, because it only means that it's actually around 6 times lower than where it once was back in December of 2024, which I don't find to be a bad thing, because if it could just go back to that, I'm already kind of dancing, actually, because I find that to be pretty impressive. That's the thing. I mean, sure, Bitcoin is around 60 grand, but it's not around 6 times lower than where it once was in December 2024. But ADA, it is, right? Which is Cardano's native token. If I'm able to dollar cost average into ADA back at early 2021 levels, because keep in mind, as of right now, we're as low as where we once were back in early 2021, but in 2026, I have zero complaints about that. I would not complain if I saw a discount in a store in real life. You know what I mean? But again, this is just my opinion. But when it comes to Cardano, I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. So long story short, do I think it's cooked? No, because fundamentally, it's still there. The adoption is still there. It didn't become bad as a layer 1 blockchain. Again, the only thing that went down was the price charts. But as we've seen in the past, bear markets, sometimes they're not permanent. And I actually think that Cardano as a layer 1 blockchain is way better right now when compared to before in terms of the pure fundamentals of it. So if I can dollar cost average again into a project that I like a lot, and yet it's around 16 cents, slightly under that, I have zero complaints, because again, we're around 6 times lower than $1, and we just saw $1 in December of 2024, so slightly over a year ago. But this is just my personal opinion, and long story short, I just don't think it's cooked.